Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there and having yourselves a great start to your day, great start to your weekend. I've had to start this video over multiple times this morning just due to some mixing up of words, things like that. So we're going to hope that this is the video that gets out to you guys. But we got a lot to discuss this morning. We're going to break down, the sections of the country we normally break down. But, the big topic of this video will be discussing the severe weather event today. It's hard to call today an outbreak. Normally I associate an outbreak with tornadoes, and today is not going to be a day where we have an extremely high tornado threat. In fact, as of right now, as of 7:22 Eastern Time, 6:22 in the time frame where the severe weather will impact the most, we only have a 5% risk of a tornado. But with that being said, I just want to remind y'all, this information I'm showing you is the time I'm making the video. So a lot of times on the day of these severe weather events, they like to upgrade like an hour or two after I drop the video. So I'll be sure to post in the community tab the link to the Storm Prediction Center if they do upgrade this from an enhanced right now to a moderate. But we're going to discuss this in detail for you guys, try to break it down for you folks one more time. And then tonight there'll be a lot of people going live, which a lot of people do an excellent job with keeping people aware, keeping people safe, saving lives. And, we'll still pump out a video tonight, but of course, we'll keep on talking about what's to come instead of what's going on right now. So with that being said, if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. You guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over? As always, please put those in the comments below so I can pray over them, and then so others can do so too, and I promise you that they will. So you got leftover moisture right here, showers, storms. I like to use the word convection, but just anytime I use the word convection, think of that as showers and storms. Left over from last night. And this has drifted into northern sections of Missouri. And then you got this big blob down here in southeast Texas. This will continue to make its way along the southern regions of the Deep South, the Gulf states. It'll try to reinitialize some storms right into this area. Damaging winds, large hail, the biggest threat. But I really think the biggest threat is going to be in this region right into here. And this does include Little Rock, St. Louis. I really want to watch closer to this low pressure, this area right here, for some elevated tornado threat. I would not be surprised if they do bump the risk area from a 5 to a 10% risk. It might be up here, but this is what we watch. And then this is going to develop into what we call a quasi-linear convective system. And it's just a fancy term. I don't use it a lot because I think it's just dramatic. It's just a fancy term for a line of storms that's bowing out. So we'll talk about that here in a second. Watches and warnings. The only real reason I'm showing you this because there's winter storm watches up for areas of Wisconsin, northeast Minnesota, and then the far western UP regions of Michigan, a couple counties in Minnesota. You're probably going to get an upgrade to a warning for some of these counties, but I would say most of this will be an upgrade to an advisory, but we'll see. Excessive rainfall outlook. There is a slight risk for flash flooding to occur. That is a 15% risk of flooding being met, flash flood guidance being met within 25 miles of any given point in this yellow area. And that is because you're going to have a lot of Gulf moisture funneling in to this line of storms down south, and then just a marginal risk all the way up north. But the big thing to discuss in this video is the severe weather threat. You got an enhanced risk. This is the latest update from earlier this morning. This stretches from St. Louis through Little Rock all the way to pretty much Shreveport. Springfield, Poplar Bluff is included in this. Might as well say Jonesboro. And we're going to have some nasty storms to get going today, guys. We'll talk about the southern areas first because the one panel that I like to use doesn't show the entire risk area. But, there's a risk of severe thunderstorms right now, but say in southeast Texas. And this is just due to this complex of storms moving through right now. Producing some very heavy rain, lightning, maybe some small hail. And so I expect this area to be kind of cropped out a little bit later this morning. But you do have the slight risk of severe thunderstorms for the entire state of Louisiana and the entire western half of Mississippi, and then a small section of northern Louisiana. And this pretty much goes through about 75% of Arkansas, 80% of Arkansas, the heart of the state. And all the way into southern Missouri. We'll move a little bit further north here in a second. But tornado risk with this, like I said, not very high. If you're wondering what the brown is, that is a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles at any given point. The dark green is a 2% risk. So It's not a huge threat today, but this does include Little Rock, might as well say Shreveport, Monroe, Louisiana, Springfield, Missouri. But hail threat will be the biggest threat with this today. In the red, that is at least a 30% chance to see hail pushing 1 inch in diameter or larger within 25 miles at any given point. I'll try to stop saying that as much, but remember, these risk percentages are all associated with following that. Within 25 miles at any given point, location, things like that. So the yellow area is a 15% risk of the same criteria, but you got this black outlined area that is at least a 10% risk of significant hail, which is pushing 2 inch in diameter or larger in this region. So that this is its own risk, if you will, right? So no doubt you're going to see some very large hail in this entire region. Arkansas is going to have a huge threat for very large hail. And then wind risk with this, you have at least a 30% chance to see winds pushing 50 knots or higher. That is 55 to 60 miles per hour and mile per hour readings. And then in the yellow area, 15% risk of the same criteria. You know, I've been saying for the last 2 days that I thought they would issue a hatch risk for damaging winds, but they haven't. And I think the real big reason is because you're lacking a real big favorable wind flow aloft. Then that's why you don't have a big tornado threat. So these storms are really fueled off thermodynamics, and we'll talk about what that means here in a second. But up here to the north, you have an enhanced risk of severe storms that has continued to trend further north. So this does include Columbia, Missouri. This does include Springfield, Poplar Bluff, areas of the Boot Hill, but St. Louis now is included with this. And the tornado threat is a 5% risk in the brown area, so not very large. But I would not be surprised if they put a little 10% risk somewhere in here today. We'll see what happens. But hail risk, it's the same thing up here, except 30% just goes into St. Louis, a small section of southwest Illinois. Same criteria, remember, 30% chance of hail being 1 inch in diameter or larger. Then the hatch risk is a 10% risk of hail pushing 2 inch in diameter or larger. That's starting to get into hail that could, you know, put some dents into some things. 30% risk of damaging winds and 50 knots or higher in this region, 55 to 60 miles per hour in the red area, 15% risk in the yellow area. So let's break this down. Let's talk about the deep south first. So like I said, you got storms making their way through Texas right now, southeast Texas. They will begin to try to re-energize in this area right into here, maybe here in the coming hours and morning hours, early afternoon. So we'll watch that. And we keep this moving here, and we can see how this develops. Don't focus too much on Arkansas with this. We're really talking about Louisiana and Mississippi. But these storms will continue to enter the picture. We're getting into about 8 a.m. Central Time here in the next couple hours. The latest run of the HRRR model doesn't show what we showed last night, which was a huge complex of storms going through the entire southern halves of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Now it really keeps it all into the Gulf of Mexico, but it does show some storms firing up this afternoon, and they look kind of discreet, guys. So that's why you cannot rule out a tornado threat completely down here. But damaging winds, large hail, the biggest threat. These storms could be pretty powerful. They are really thermodynamic driven, meaning there's a lot. It's very warm. It's very moist down here. Therefore, the CAPE levels are pretty high, well over 2,000 joules per kilogram in these regions. So these could be some pretty powerful storms. You know, Jackson Point South, Hattiesburg, places like that could certainly see some nasty storms. Baton Rouge, New Orleans, you guys could see some pretty powerful storms. We're getting into later this evening, into this evening. We'll see if these storms try to cluster up together, and then we'll watch 9-10 p.m. tonight as the energy, the main energy that will hit Arkansas, tries to develop and get going here in northern Louisiana, and these could produce some damaging winds, large hail also. But this is getting to when the sun goes down. Watch out, Shreveport, Monroe, Louisiana, and these storms will try to push. We'll go all the way to about 10 p.m. These storms are pushing through Memphis, getting close to Jackson, and then I think they will maintain some steam, but they will probably lose a punch, and we can go back to the here we go. Hold on. Go back to the long range HRRR model here. We'll have to go all the way back to these storms And, they're still packing a punch off the latest long-range H-triple-R model that came out, a few hours ago. But this is around midnight tonight. You got a pretty intense line of storms moving through the entire state of Mississippi, southeast Louisiana, and then they start to lose some steam as they get into Alabama into the wee hours of the morning. So this is the updraft Felicity swath through about 10 p.m. Central Time. It continues to be kind of high, but just know that just because a storm is rotating, that don't mean it's going to produce a tornado. You need a lot. Severe weather is very complex, and I'm not afraid to admit that it's probably the weather topic that I'm least experienced with, if you will. But there's a lot that goes into it. The atmosphere is wild. It's not as cut and dry as if there's going to be a tornado in my backyard. If it was, nobody would die from severe weather. But you have some vibrant areas showing up here where it likes to have some spinning up drafts tonight around Shreveport. Like I said, does not mean there's going to be a tornado. But a lot of these storms will be rotating. It's just, are they going to latch the ground, therefore be a tornado? So watch out. These will have some rotation with it. Up here from Arkansas and southern Missouri, we keep going today, and really what I watch for, quiet all the way through about early afternoon, okay? And this happens fast. And then 3 p.m., big storm shows up in southern Arkansas. Watch out, well south of Little Rock. And then bang. This is a 1 hour difference, guys. 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m. That's a huge difference, and just immediately has storms exploding. And this will be an explosive environment. A lot of times with these explosive environments, you don't have big tornado threats, and you have very large hail threats. And that just screams to me that this is thermodynamic driven, not kinematic driven, meaning kinematics is the favorable wind pattern aloft to put that spin to the atmosphere. The directional shear, the speed shear, you don't have much of that out there with this. You have a little bit, but not a lot. So, Springfield down into the mountainous regions of northern and western Arkansas, powerful storms get going here. These will immediately start producing large hail in these regions. And then they quickly try to cluster up. And this is when the damaging wind threat probably increases, but the hail threat maintains. 5, 6, 7 p.m., these storms are still packing a punch. My folks in St. Louis will talk about y'all here in a second. These storms start to, we'll see what happens in, like Little Rock, things like that. But I can tell you a large hail threat is the same. That's why you have an enhanced risk. So this is around 6 p.m. Latest H-triple-R model says a line of storms is cutting right through the heart of Arkansas and southern Missouri. These are knocking on the door of Jonesboro and Poplar Bluff around 7 to 8 p.m. and packing a punch. And then these begin to move into western Kentucky and Tennessee. I would say around 9 to 10 p.m. Still a large hail threat, but not as high. But it's definitely gusty winds, maybe some damaging winds are possible in this region. The updraft Felicity swath, it's the same kind of deal down here in Louisiana. You got elevated areas. Some of these storms will be rotating. It's just, are they actually going to latch? I definitely think we will have a tornado warning or two. Will we have any actual confirmed tornadoes? Not quite sure. It's just like we had the 10% risk of a tornado that got issued in Georgia 2 days ago. But I don't think we had any confirmed tornadoes. So, we've seen some powerful tornadoes and a 2 or 5% risk. So, one thing I'll tell you what's going on with this environment. We'll talk about Missouri here in a second. Why are we having such explosive thunderstorms today? Well, intense surface heating, temperatures rising well into the 80s, dew points, very moist air. In response, you get very high CAPE levels. So we'll stop this around 1, 2 p.m. You got CAPE levels reaching 2,000 joules per kilogram, 2,500 joules per kilogram, all the way up here into central Missouri. There is a ton of explosive fuel in the atmosphere. And there's not really a cap, so these storms are going to get going. They'll explode. They'll take full advantage of all the atmospheric players on the field, aloft, above our heads, and they will be explosive. Down here in the real warm, moist air, you got CAPE values reaching well over 3,000 joules per kilogram. So what you're seeing on here basically is storm fuel for these storms to really get going. It's like putting gasoline on a fire. So this is why you have such an explosive atmosphere. We call it a CAPE bomb, which I wouldn't consider Excuse me, guys. Sorry. I wouldn't consider this to necessarily be that situation because normally I associate a Cape bomb with Cape well over 4,000 joules per kilogram. But there is going to be a lot of fuel to the atmosphere, rocket fuel. Missouri and Illinois, you'll have some showers and storms move through the area this morning throughout the entire state. This is 9, 10, 11 a.m. They enter Illinois. I don't think these will do much. I think they will lose some steam. But how much does the atmosphere recover behind this first initiation of storms? I mean, you even got the southern area of this leftover energy redeveloping over kind of near the Springfield area, basically southwest southern areas of Illinois. Large hail, a threat. Damaging winds, a threat. A tornado is a threat. I would argue that the tornado threat is higher in Missouri today. You're closer to that low pressure. The kinematics are better. So please watch out, especially if any individual storms get going in Missouri today. I would argue north central Missouri. Watch out for a quick spin up. Right on this boundary up here where the warm front lifts in response to this low pressure building in here. You actually can see the warm front in this area. It's right in here where you have that sharp cutoff in Cape. That's probably where your best spin will be. And in fact, you look at the 850s in this region, and they are just not high at all. But, it's coming in behind this. It's just going to be like a pocket of a low-level jet. These storms almost create their own wind profile, if you will. So you got to watch. There's not much, but you got to watch. But these storms will continue to move through. I would say St. Louis, some pretty powerful. Sorry, I got a little convection. Congestion in my throat. That's hilarious. I like that. But a pretty powerful storm makes its way through, I would say, St. Louis sometime this afternoon into this evening. These storms can pack a punch. So you'll see these coming in St. Louis. There's no doubt you will see this coming. These will make it all the way to the Boot Hill of Missouri, I would say, later this evening, 7, 8 p.m. And these will maintain. And southern Illinois throughout the evening hours. So I think it's going to be a rocky weather evening for you guys in the southern half of Louisiana and also in western Kentucky. And we'll see how much they hold together for Indiana. And we'll switch down to the 06Z. And I think they'll lose some steam as we get into after midnight for Indiana, but gusty winds are possible. Then you see the snow coming up behind this. And speaking of, let's talk about this. Look at the updraft Felicity swath. It wants to put it right over St. Louis. But, guys, this is just a model run. At this point, we're the day of the event. We just kind of watch and see what's going to happen. But, this is where it's showing that a little bit of a spin to the atmosphere could certainly be there today. So we'll certainly watch for that. The rest of the Southeast, pretty quiet. Going to breeze through this very quickly. You could have some showers and storms are possible in the Delmarva area all the way into Maryland, northern VA, West Virginia today. It's definitely possible, but nothing really that severe, anything crazy to worry about. We get into this evening. These storms are making their way through Mississippi and definitely could wake up to a rainy commute, a rainy morning for your Sunday morning for the Mobile area. And then I think we'll have some storms tomorrow in the southeast. The northeast today, like I said, you're dealing with that leftover spin. So you're going to have some reinitiation of some storms in the eastern half of the eastern half. I like to mix my states up. I try to test you guys. The eastern half of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, all the way into the southern tier of New York State. You could have some storms spinning around out here with this leftover low pressure. There'll be a little bit of a spin to the atmosphere, not really for tornadoes, but just for you'll see it on radar, a little bit of a spin. And so, this entire area right into here could have some showers and storms, maybe some gusty winds associated with it. Then overnight tonight, southern New England will see some showers, maybe a storm or two, not a big deal. North central U.S. As this low pressure moves through, there's enough cold air. We get into this afternoon, this evening. Some rain will begin to switch to some snow in northwest Iowa and then areas of southern Minnesota. And then as the low pressure moves through, kind of just meanders, an area of snow will really get going here, I would say right around midnight for northwest Iowa, southern and southwest Minnesota. Rain will turn to snow probably in the wee hours of the morning for Minneapolis. central Minnesota, areas of northern Minnesota. And then, this low pressure just keeps spinning around. Another area of moisture gets going tomorrow afternoon. For your Sunday afternoon for eastern and central areas of Iowa, you could have some snow falling. Pretty wild events. Heavier snow could fall now in central to western areas of Wisconsin as we're getting into tomorrow evening, a little bit of a mixture. And, it's still snowing all the way through midnight Sunday night. So snow between now and basically the duration of this event. I mean, the National Weather Service is going for 1.5 feet of snow in areas of the far western UP of Michigan. Duluth could get a couple inches of snow. The heart of Wisconsin right into here, maybe 0.5 foot of mid-April snow. Not totally unusual, but this is pretty uncommon. A couple inches of snow is possible in Minneapolis, but this is an event that really hasn't been talked about much, but here it is. Crazy mid-April snowstorm. Temperatures today, moving boundary with this cold front will cut temperatures in half as it clears, but everybody else, Michigan, widespread 80s into Ontario, Canada, 80s into Wisconsin. Basically in areas, it's wild, but unreal, but you might hit 80 degrees today where you might get a foot of snow starting throughout the rest of the weekend. So very dynamic weather. 70s and 80s everywhere else. So sorry I had to rush the end of that video. Just got to start getting ready here for the soccer game this morning. But God bless all y'all. Stay safe out there, and talk to you this evening.